Hello, besties. How are you tonight?
Hi, queens.
Hey, sisters.
Look, Leo, Donnie's not late. It's my fault. I was telling a story in the back room. We went a little bit long. It was my fault. I was talking trash about design styles. It's my fault.
Leo, gays are never late. They arrive precisely when they mean to. I said that wrong. Gays are never late, nor are they early. They arrive precisely when they mean to.
Perfect.
Gandalf the gay.
Fresh off the boat.
Horse and carriage and all, my friends. Good evening, everyone. I don't know where we're going with that. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 101 of Restitching the Tapestry.
101. Ooh,
woohoo! We are triple digits. Yay. It's great to see all of you. We hope that you've been doing well and having a good week. Honestly, the thought of getting on here and doing this has been the thing getting me through my week. So, I mean, that's not surprising, though.
I just love that we matched today. We're both wearing hats.
I
We're
know.
both like looking December festive.
We are so
look like
sartorially synchronized.
we look like we're about ready to go to a Starbucks and put our order in.
Pumpkin spice latte.
Chai latte with almond milk for me. Thank you.
I do oat milk. Okay. Love it. We're so alternative.
I know.
Sorry, I'm like really like hyper tonight. I've had like 2 pots of coffee today. So okay. Well, Leo's here. We have Arby here as well. It's good to see both of you. So let's talk about how we've been doing and what we've been up to. Ari, would you like to go first?
My life is a trash fire, and I'm just trying to get through.
Oh no.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm working through it. But I've got my trusty soda. And I've got a hope and a prayer, and I have decided I'm going to write a horror movie about the worm that ate me.
Oh my gosh, Ari was telling me about this horror movie idea, and it's phenomenal, and I'm super excited to experience it.
It's basically about the existential dread of the pandemic as told by a woman who throws herself down a garbage chute and gets eaten alive by a worm.
A giant worm.
A giant worm, yes. So I'm just like, you know what? Like, I hate everything about this week, so I'm just gonna like displace it by writing a horror movie. Sure, why not? Let's just do it. Fine.
I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like I've been thrown down a garbage chute, so I relate with it already.
Absolutely. Perfect. It's like it's the perfect horror movie for our generation.
Because we millennials always feel like trash.
It's like, you know what? You hate everything, just like throw yourself down a trash chute.
Right? It's like, oh no, the world is a dystopian hellscape all around us. What should we do? We become the trash. Oh my goodness. This week for me it's been pretty busy. So obviously last week, I think I mentioned this in last week's episode, Friday we closed on our house. So that was an interesting experience. It was a lot, let's just say. But it was really cool. We got to like meet the sellers. We got to learn about the house's history. And now it's just waiting until we move, and we're moving 2 days after Christmas. You'll probably notice that in the background here, like you'll slowly start seeing things depleting as I pack things away.
So you learned about the house's history.
I did.
Is it a murder house?
No, like that was like one of the first things I was like, did anything bad happen here? No, actually,
any satanic rituals that he like, any ghost experiments, like any weird, like they have to disclose that stuff, right?
I think so. Yeah. Thankfully, no, nothing like that happened. In fact, we are the 4th family or the 4th group of people who's ever lived in it. It was built by like an older lady who lived there like until like I think the 90s or so, and then it was just like bought by like smaller families. So we're the fourth people, and we're aiming for this to be like our forever home. So we'll probably be there for a long time. I'm hoping, mostly because I don't have the mental capacity to move again, honestly. Let's see. Leo asks, "Hey Donnie, have you ever thought about organizing your books and your shelf by color? Oh, making a gradient rainbow, or in this case, a gradient." I wish I had the patience to do that. I unfortunately do not have the patience to do
Oh,
that.
I've done that on my bookshelf before. It's basically just like a Saturday afternoon, but it's worth it. It's so
Maybe I'll try it. We'll see. Honestly, my big worry is like when we do get into the new house, I want like my office to be replicated to look very much like this. So hopefully I'll be able to pull that off. If not, I'm sure I'll make it work, whatever. So
The only problem is that like books that don't go together will get put together because they are together by color. You know what I mean?
yeah, and see, my issue is that I organize them by like what type of book, that like a genre. Like
Right.
my top shelves, like this right here, these are like journals. Over here, like these different vacant spots, those were all like poetry collections.
Right.
So moving everything together would probably exhaust me greatly.
It would definitely mess with your mental space because you'd be like, these don't go together.
It would
They look pretty,
deplete
but
my
they don't go
soul.
together.
It would deplete my soul in every way. But anyway, beyond that though, everything's been going pretty well. Gearing up for the end of the semester, so obviously there's been like a lot of grading and stuff, but nothing too out of the ordinary for me. So shall we get to our mission statement per the usual? We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing. Woo! Leo's all for the aesthetics. And for the praying hand aesthetic, of course, a classic. So let's do a current event snapshot really quickly because a lot's been happening in the last week. Like, there's been a lot to absorb. So, good news first and foremost. I posted a short about this earlier. I don't know if anybody saw it, but well, the House just passed the what is it? I keep forgetting what it's called. The Respect for Marriage Act, which was also passed by the Senate last week, I think. And basically, this is a bill that's going to put forth legislation that will protect same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, which has been put forth pretty quickly in light of the Supreme Court recently. One of the justices making a comment about, oh, we're going to be looking at marriage equality next on their docket of things to get
Try
rid
to
of.
abolish.
Yeah. But so like that's good news. Like it's going to the president's desk next, and we know obviously that President Biden is going to approve that. So that means that there's going to be a lot of securities in place for people in different types of relationships, like LGBTQ plus relationships, interracial relationships. I should say marriages specifically. There we go. And it'll make it easier, I think, for people to also get married without having that looming specter of, oh my gosh, are we going to lose this right? Is it going to be gone? Right?
Yeah. It's just like it feels like there's just like an attack on progress on certain things, and it's just like it seems like we took all of these steps forward in the past like 20 years, and it feels like they're trying to take like 5 steps back. And it seems like it seems so silly about the stuff that they want to walk on, like backtrack on. And it just it seems it the stuff that that conservative judges and conservatives want to backwalk on, they seem like such no-brainers. It's like saying, I don't like the word is, or I don't like the word, were, or like I don't like the word, like words that like are just part of our language now, that are just like like everyday words that we use all the time. Like I don't like the word bee.
Right.
Like bees and like a buzzing bee. I don't like bee anymore. Let's not use bee anymore. Let's call it fuzzy or something. Or
Right. Well, and
it's
see,
like,
at the end of the day, it all comes back down to like erasure, right? Like I
yeah,
think, like, and it's all done in the name, and especially for LGBTQ plus communities, it's all done in the name of freedom of religion, right? Because, and that's like one of the criticisms of this bill, is because it does not like grant concessions for people arguing religious freedom, right? Which is kind of messed up, because that means that people are still outright trying to weaponize religion against entire groups of people. But of course,
right.
they don't see it that way.
Right.
So,
It just seems like they're taking away like like things that are just so normalized now, that are just like part of our society, just like normal things that are just, have been normalized. And it's just like they're trying to take him away, and just like they're trying to make like they're trying to other gay people again, and they're trying
mhm,
to other interracial relationships, like things that I thought were, just part of our culture now, that they're
right,
trying to like make it so that it's weird or unusual. And like abortions, I thought we were over that abortion hurdle, and that it was just like that battle had been fought, and like it was sort of like, well, people debate it still because it's sort of like, well, this is where I stand on it, but like it's sort of like it's just kind of like a quid pro, this is where I stand on it, but it's a kind of a non-issue anymore, because these are old debates, but then
mhm.
it's like it's still a thing. Why is this still a thing? You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
that's what makes it so exhausting too, because like I don't think there's really ever been a point where we in the LGBTQ plus community have felt like a sense of permanence or security, because we have to keep thinking about like, oh well, in the next 4 years when new people get elected, like could this completely change, could it be reversed? Like there's no permanence. And I think that that's another huge part of the problem. So, oh, David's here. David says, I think one aspect to this is for many complicated reasons, I think in Europe but also in the US, um is how like national change, how nations change and evolve, like culturally, racially, ethically, religiously, and with LGBTQ plus rights. um these nations feel like it's a major change when really it's not. It's literally just a validation of our existence. Right?
Right.
So the only thing that's changing is like the acknowledgement of our existence, which is
Right.
kind of troubling when you think about it. So, ooh, so another news. Kanye West. Here we are
Oh my
again.
god. Oh my god. Why does the man open his mouth?
So,
I've been ignoring it because I just don't even care anymore. I just don't even care. I just want him to go. I just want him to not just not even have a platform
right.
anymore, and just not. And like Elon Musk unblocked Donald Trump in like,
Hmm.
it's just sort of like,
And Kanye West.
that's what I'm saying. He just like he's giving platforms to people who are anti-Semitic, white supremacist and just like allowing them to be terrible people. And it's just like, I just want them to go away. I just want them to
Right.
go away, and I just want them to not have a platform because they're racist.
Mhm.
They're just, and it's like, and they try to make it seem like he's just, it's just his mental illness. I have had manic episodes. It has never made me racist. It has never
Right.
it has never made me say things that are racist or done things in a, like, I've never just like popped off and said the N-word or something just because I was having a manic like, never. So
Yeah.
like, it doesn't track, like,
It
and
just
there's so many
becomes
people
a
in the mental health community who are just like, I've had mental health crises and never, and
well,
like,
that like that's he's using that as a cloak, essentially. Like it's
right,
people are using that to justify him because at this point, like people will do anything to justify horrible behavior. Yeah,
right.
and for those of you who do not know, like so like he was on, was it Tucker Carlson? It was some on some sort of like conservative talk show where he basically admitted to thinking that Hitler was a brilliant person.
And it's just
And
he, I'm just it doesn't track. Like, it's not
yeah.
mental illness at that point. It's just him being a really bad person. It's just
Yeah,
him being a bad
exactly.
person.
Well, it got so bad that even Elon Musk like was like, "This is enough." Like he brought him back, but then was like, "Nope, this is enough. Can't do." But no, it's really disturbing. And in light of those comments and the Club Q tragedy that happened a couple of weeks ago, the Department of Homeland Security released a bulletin regarding, domestic terror violence against LGBTQ plus people, Jewish people, and migrant communities. So it's like it proves that like a person with that much power making statements like that does, cause violence to happen, you
Yeah.
know. So let's see here. David says, I want to say as a Jew, I wish I had all this world control because then I wouldn't have all the student debt. Um, that means the thoughts about these groups are already there. Yeah. Um, yeah, like David says, like when people are drunk and say racist things, it just reveals that's what's deep inside, right? It's infuriating because when you see the rise of anti-Semitism for years, or you see the rise of anti-Semitism for years, and when popular figures whom people look up to say these things, it makes it harder to stop. Oh yeah, because it's a validation. It always comes back to a validation, you know. So I don't know what that was, but
It was a flourish.
speaking of people in power validating things and making them problematic, we're going to definitely talk about something tonight that has a lot to do with that. And we're going to be talking about the political ramifications of it too. But tonight, our topic is internalized misogyny. So we've kind of talked about misogyny before and like sexism throughout the history of the show, but we wanted to dedicate a specific episode about internalized misogyny. So, and David, don't worry, like you're not going on and on. We enjoy your conversation, by the way.
We're glad that you're here.
Right. So, okay. I think before we talk about internalized misogyny, I'm just going to go ahead and define what misogyny is, because we want a foundation, right? And misogyny is defined as a quote, dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. Okay. Now, adding on to that, the definition of internalized misogyny is when women subconsciously project sexist ideas onto other women, even onto themselves. And I want to extend that definition to other groups of people as well, like, say, the LGBTQ plus community, because I do very much think that we exhibit some internalized misogyny a lot, a lot.
I think that it's not even just it's not even just women, because it's internalized misogyny is patriarchal in nature. It
Mm-hmm.
has to, because I would say as someone who's non-binary, because I was assigned female at birth, that I have struggled with internalized misogyny most of my life, because of uh, patriarchal systems that given to handed down to me from my parents and the media and teachers and peers and just the system itself, the white supremacist system, that
Mm-hmm.
I have struggled with self-image, body image, um, you know so even though I'm technically I have been raised female. Um, even though I'm non-binary and I traverse that line, and I consider myself trans, because I was assigned female at birth. I do struggle with that internalized misogyny still.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because internalized misogyny is rooted in those systems, but it's also rooted in the dehumanization of women or anyone who is female presenting or androgynous. Because like for me, like internalized misogyny has been a bit different as a gay man, and I'm glad that we're talking about this. But for me as a gay man, like internalized misogyny took on the form of being shamed for being feminine and
Mhm.
being taught that me being feminine meant that I was less than, or meant that I was weaker, or meant that I was less attractive. Um, and of course, that's asininely problematic because all of that translates to anyone who is a woman or who is female presenting or, like essentially are less than. Like it's definitely like a
It's sort of
superiority
like
versus
women became
inferiority.
your best friends as well as your competition, because you were competing for the male gaze as well.
Hmm. Yeah, essentially, yeah. And of course,
So
for the gay male gay, for the gay male gays, there's a ring to that. Um, it's masculinity because we're taught that masculinity is better and more attractive. Um, that's why a lot of gay men are very much focused on it and want it. And now mind you, like people have their attractions. I get it. Like having attractions is fine, but you can also tell that there are people you know who have shaped that based on what they've been conditioned to believe regarding masculinity versus femininity, men, women. So it's interesting. Ooh, it's a
yeah,
lot to unpack.
yeah, it's it's a lot. So, and it's interesting because it's sort of like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of the dynamics of men and women when when you take the LGBTQ plus community and you take this internalized misogyny. It changes things a lot. It changes because the dynamics change. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so it puts an interesting spin on things, because uh, you know um, because uh, and there is that friendship between men and women, that is that people say that aren't aren't supposed to happen. You're not that men and women aren't supposed to be friends, can't be friends.
Hmm.
But then you know, but there's that trope of the gay best friend, the gay best
The
friend,
token gay.
the token gay, the gay best friend that confides in to help the straight girl get a man to help her with her straight friend. But then But then at the same time, the gay best friend is pining after the straight man as well, and always trying to, you know, trying to hook up with the straight guy and turn him gay. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, it's like there's that competition, that it's like that frenemy. It's like, I'm trying to be your friend, but at the same time, I'm also competing
in the trifecta, the woman is the one who is essentially the tool that's being used, right? Which is very like denigrating in a way when you think about it.
Right.
So like there's so much to unpack with that. Like
Mhm.
and my biggest frustration is gay men oftentimes do not think that they're misogynistic at all, but you see it everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere. And we'll talk. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit, because I do have a list that says 15 signs you're a gay misogynist. But I do want to share another list from Psychology Today that showcases 10 signs or examples of internalized sexism or
But I'm not
internalized
saying,
misogyny.
I do want to disclaim that not every gay man is trying to hook up with the straight woman's
Oh no.
God. I'm just saying, like, that's the, it's just trope. It's tropey.
So interesting. I'm glad that you mentioned that. But I would argue that because most of us cis gay men have been taught from a young age that like the perfect representation of masculinity are these like hyper masculine guys, like, you know, football, you know, I think many gay men will admit that that's what they're drawn to, or they won't admit, I mean, that that's what they're drawn to. Like, even I used to feel drawn to that type of thing too.
Mhm.
Now, I feel like it's gotten better and it's not as prevalent as it used to be, but I do think that there is some sort of, there's residual. There's residual. So let's share some 10 signs of internalized sexism according to Psychology Today. And of course, this focuses on women specifically and how they have internalized misogyny. And later, I'm going to also apply it to gay men and
Oh
how
my
they
God,
have.
is this like a quiz? Because let me see how many I've done in my life.
Okay, so the first one is number 1, regularly makes disparaging remarks about one's own body and physical appearance.
Oh my
I do
God.
that.
I literally just did this yesterday. I literally just did this yesterday. I was like, I'm too old now. I'm too ugly. I'm like not pretty anymore. I I'm literally I don't even know that I'm literally just like this gross old person now, and like my beauty has faded because I'm almost 40.
I like if I really relate with that. I literally had that the other day too. I was like a crow's foot. I am a decaying husk of a human being. It was terrible. Number 2, regularly making disparaging remarks about other women's and girls' bodies and physical appearances.
Um I did that actually just recently. I caught myself saying some mean things about other women, and I was like, man, I need to not say that about them. I was like, I was comparing myself to other women, and I was like, why did I do that? Why did I say those mean things about other women? We need to say nice things about other women. We need to say nice things about other people. Like, I I need to not compare myself to other people. I need to not compare myself to, so yes,
Right.
I have done that. Yes.
I would say that I have 2, and here is what gets gay men specifically: criticizing the clothes that women wear. Because
Yep.
I feel like like in this world of binaries and stereotypes and, you know, the ebbs and flows of these systems that, you know, impose upon us, like they place gay men in this capacity of like being the foremost in knowledge when it comes to fashion, right? It's like one of the classic stereotypes we see, and I think a lot of people kind of like internalize that and use it sometimes. Like I know I've been like before, I've been like, oh my gosh, did you see what that person's wearing? Like what's going on? But and then I catch myself. I'm like, yikes, Donny. Yikes. And then I think I'm like, well then who's judging me? Like look at me right now. Like I'm in like a Dr. Pepper shirt.
I'll literally be like, I'm the ugliest person on the planet, and then I'll be like, at least I don't look like so and so, or I don't. At least I don't look like that person. At least I don't look like that person. And I'm like, what a mean thing to say. What a terrible, awful, disgusting, horrible thing to say. That
Right.
person is beautiful. That person is gorgeous. I'm
You
like,
know,
what a mean thing for me to say about that person.
and it makes me wonder, like, if internalized misogyny is more than just like what we see people doing. Like I think a lot of people act on it because they've been the recipients of that type of bullying before. You know, like I know like I've been bullied before for clothing or my voice and stuff like that. And then in the past, like I've also kind of placed those judgments on other people.
It's just those random thoughts that I think.
Mhm.
It's those random, they come and go thoughts. It's just that it's because I'm insecure with myself sometimes. And so those insecure thoughts come. And so it's sort of like I have moments where I feel small in myself. And so it's that I'm not, when I feel insecure about my own body and I'm
Mhm.
feeling insecure about my own looks, I will do those comparison seeking behaviors as a way to try to bolster myself up. And so
Right.
when I have those moments of weakness, especially right now, since I'm really depressed, I do those comparative behaviors because I've had other people do it. Like I've seen other people around me, like as far as like the women around me doing it my whole life. So it's sort of like that's my knee jerk reaction. And so I I know that it happens. And so
Mhm.
like I haven't done it in such a long time, but I just recently did it. I like for the first time in like a very, very long time, just recently.
Mhm.
And I was like, ooh, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Bad
Oh,
art. I was like slapping. I was like, no, bad Ari, bad. Get me in
Ari,
the
what are you
newspaper.
doing? So, number three is constantly engaging in negative social comparisons with other women and girls, routinely viewing other women as competitors in social and family situations, especially for the attention and approval of men.
Oh, um, I don't I don't compare my family members anymore.
Mhm.
That's something that I've really unlearned. Um, I no, that's something I
No.
don't do anymore. I've actually really worked hard at that. Um, I do not do that. That is something that is a no. That's a good no.
Yeah, so don't put up a three then. Don't put up a three then because you don't do that.
that's point one. That's point one for Ari. Point one for Ari.
Oh,
Yeah,
these are the positive points. Okay.
these are the
So,
positive points.
yeah.
Point one for Ari.
Number four is routinely viewing other women as competitors or adversaries in professional situations, especially those who show great potential and promise, and or those in highly visible leadership positions. I know that gay men do that to each other.
I don't do that. I actually want to work with people and be collaborative. I actually I
Same.
want to be like best friends and like I want let's work together and get things done and do like great things together. See, look, do it too, do it too.
Number five, making self-deprecating jokes slash remarks based on negative gender stereotypes. And their example is, quote, I'm a woman, so I'm bad at math.
Those aren't
Interesting.
funny jokes, though.
No.
I don't do that. Those suck. Those jokes suck.
Let's see. Number 6, making deprecating jokes or remarks about other women and girls based on negative gender stereotypes.
Like blonde
Yeah,
jokes and stuff.
I would say blonde jokes would be one. Yeah.
But those aren't funny.
No, they're not. Well, and that's the thing though, like a lot of like very misogynistic jokes just lack any, like they're
Oomph
just
or
not
humor.
funny.
So
Yeah, they're just
look,
not
4 points.
funny.
4 points against non-misog. Look at that.
I'm in that same. Yep. Where was I? Number 7, actively discouraging other women and girls from realizing their dreams and fulfilling their higher potential.
Why
Oh,
would
this is
you
a big
do that?
one.
That's so mean.
Well, let's think about it in this context. How many people do you know have been shamed for not having kids at a specific time? Or for, not getting married, right? Because like a lot of archaic stereotypical notions think that women should be, married and having kids by a specific time, and that's not acceptable.
Follow your dreams. Live your spirit. Oh my goodness.
Are, are you writing an empowerment, a self-help book?
I
Follow your
apparently
dream.
am not internalized misogyny because that's terrible. That's a terrible thing. Oh my goodness. I'm like about to cry here.
Hi,
Hello,
Debbie. It's
Debbie.
good to see you.
Hello, Debbie. I'm like about to cry. This is terrible.
Well, yeah, and I know so many people who've basically been told that they can't live their dreams because that's not what should be what a woman does,
Oh my
right?
goodness. I only have I feel like I only have 2. I feel like only 2 points. Duh.
Number 8, applying a double standard favoring men and boys over women and girls in child raising, family relations, treatment at school, employee treatment in the workplace, customer treatment in business. I mean,
I feel like that's just society in general.
yeah.
I try not to do that in I feel like people do that in general. I feel like that's an unbiased thing that I feel like I have to put my finger up. Is that something that I might do unintentionally? I feel like I try not to do that. I definitely try to be fair. But I feel like because of the way society is set up, I feel like society will often give more opportunities to men
Mm,
and prefer white men over like they just it's just like an unconscious bias thing, and that I feel like they just get more opportunities and that they're just favored
yeah.
over everyone else, and that it's just like something that like I don't do consciously, but I think that it's something that happens. So
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that it's not something that I actively try to do. I definitely try to raise up women and minorities as much as possible. I try to actively do that and like make an effort to do that. But I think that sometimes it just unconscious biases come through. And I think that it's something that I try not to do and I try to actively work against. But I think that because, you know, you white supremacist patriarchal programming
It's
from the media,
conditioning.
and it's
It's
something that
very deep and layered.
so
That's what's
I feel
scary.
like I feel like I can't give myself that point because it's just ingrained. It's one of those things that I have because I grew up in a system and a society that has kind of said that boys deserve more, and they
Right.
just always will.
Yeah. Until change happens on a more, wider level. Here's an example that I remember very, very vividly of internalized misogyny. A friend and I, and my friend as a woman, we went to a car dealership. Probably, this was a few years ago. Mind you, I'm lucky I can put gas in my car. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. But when in talking about vehicles, the person at the dealership was direct, like making eye contact with me and talking to me about like the vehicle related things, even though this person who was with me was the one buying the vehicle.
Of course.
So I literally looked at her. Well, it was like this dude and this woman who were like kind of both helping us.
It's like, don't you worry your pretty little head, honey. The
Well,
men are
like
talking.
so like I kind of like I was just like, this isn't my car. This is my friend's car. Like, why are you? And they were like, oh. And it just goes to show you, like, in so many different spaces, like women are continually minimized and reduced. And that's very problematic, right? And like I feel like that happens in like other communities as well, right? So any
That's
person who
why
is a woman or
whenever I
female
have to get
presenting.
my car work done, my stepdad goes to get it taken care of, because I know if I go to get my car work done, I will get screwed. I will get
Oh
screwed
yeah.
over.
Well, and mind you, like, because I'm feminine often, like I sometimes have to like code switch when I go to a car dealership.
Like,
I
hey,
mean,
how's it going?
thankfully I have the privilege of being able to do that. Maybe not super convincingly all the time, but like,
So you have to like deepen your voice and like kind of strut.
yeah, like put on a hat backwards. But no, like, and I have to do that though, because if I don't, then I'm not really taken seriously, because
Yeah.
like apparently in the automobile world you have to be a very masculine man to be taken seriously.
That's really messed up though.
It's exhausting. And here, and mind you, I'm saying it's exhausting for women and people who are female presenting. I can only imagine how much more exhausting it is.
That's why I'm so worried, because like here's the thing. I'm studying to be a screenwriter, right? And like I'm trying to break into the film business, right? Very competitive, very masculine business, right?
Yeah.
I am so concerned. I'm so concerned.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Because it's like, nobody's going to take me seriously. First of all, I have a mental illness.
Mhm.
I'm disabled. So first of all, that's like a check mark against me. People are just going to be like, you're crazy.
Well, and
Second of
being
all,
non-binary is also going to be a check mark too, because
non-binary. Although that might actually help me. But like,
yeah, that's true.
because it'd be like a marginalized voice. But like, so, but they'll actually probably just see me as a woman, because most people just see me as a woman. Like most of the time, I just get misgendered as a woman, and it's as a lesbian woman. But it's so that's the problem. It's like the thing is, it's like they're it's bad, and so it's just like they're gonna marginalize. I don't.
Yeah.
But like the horror business too, like being that's like so masculine based. It's all about men, white men specifically. Although you have people like Jordan Peele who are Black men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like it's been opened up, but like being a minority in horror specifically, it's like yeah, good luck with that. It's like
Right.
if you're not white and if you're not male in the horror business, it's like you're gonna get spit up, chewed up and
Mm-hmm.
spit out. So
Yeah.
I'm like, do I do this, or should I just go for like romance or something, or like drama, or like something that like people will treat me with more respect in? I don't know. So
I
I'm
say
into
be
like
you and go for what you want.
I know. It's just it's I don't know. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a really really hard.
Rattle the cage of patriarchy, Ari.
I'm gonna have to work twice as hard to get people to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the cruel reality of it. Debbie says, by the way, Debbie, it's really good to see you. Debbie's been my friend for a very, very long time. Debbie says the restaurant business is awful with women cooks and chefs as well. Yeah, I think there's so many different job areas where it's like really, really bad. I think there are two more qualities or signs. Number 9, defending, justifying, and excusing individual acts of misogyny, mistreatment, and or abuse, either towards oneself or towards other women. And it's also called learned helplessness.
Um, so yes, I don't do that. It's sort of like allowing men to treat you poorly and saying, "Oh, it's just boys being boys,"
Yep,
it's just
exactly.
boys being boys. Like that whole Brett
Kavanaugh thing.
Kavanaugh thing. It's like, or Trump being Trump,
Oh, God.
or
That
um,
example there is perfectly illustrated by that one. Yes.
but it's like it's sort of like as a society or like any of the Me Too movement, there was a lot of just like a lot of people were just you could see just like the internalized misogyny coming out during the Me Too movement of I don't understand why this is such a big deal. I don't
Hmm.
understand why all of these Hollywood actors are getting lambasted. It's just a few women, they're just, they're just trying to,
They want money. Like that's what
they
the
want money or they want notoriety, and it's just a movement they're in. These women are incensed and they're just jumping on a bandwagon, and that it's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt.
Yep. RP says one thing women get shamed for is being sexually active. Yes. So, like, obviously, um, a sexually active man is kind of revered as being like a conqueror, like somebody who is successful, and but a woman or female presenting person who is sexually active is considered basically slut shamed, right?
Yeah.
Which that in of itself could be a whole nother episode that we could talk about, honestly.
But the thing about like the Me Too movement is that it was women were finally being empowered to like finally that there were finally repercussions.
Hmm.
Like it
People
seemed
were held
it's
accountable.
it seemed like it. It seemed like that
Mm,
that people were finally like that there was actually like some action happening, and like that it seemed like people were finally getting their comeuppance. Like it was
yeah.
sort of like women finally felt comfortable, like, or it wasn't even just women, it was just people in general, because you had gay men coming forward and saying, hey, Kevin Spacey did this to me
Hmm.
too. Because it wasn't just women who were getting it was gay men, it was children, so it wasn't just it was people in general coming
Yeah,
forward.
yeah. Oh, and it happened like it was just such a it was a place where people saw through like the way that these people are insulated, like
Right.
insulated, like, and justified for their behavior, like they were actually held accountable. um let's see, the last one is defending, justifying, and supporting societal, institutional, political, and or cultural bias and oppression against women. And the description is internalized oppression, blaming women for causing their own victimization. So victim blaming, essentially.
Right. And I feel like we do that so often. I don't do any of the so I feel
Me
like for the
neither.
most part, I I have points in favor of me not having internalized misogyny, that like more often than not I don't have internalized misogyny. I feel like because I live in a society that does have a lot of that has taught me certain things, that I do have instances in which I do have moments of internalized misogyny. So I'm not a perfect person that is like free from all of, I have things that I need to work on from this list that
Oh, same. Yeah.
so it's sort of like I think that more often than not I try not to be misogynistic towards other women, towards women or other people, because you can be misogynistic towards men, you can be misogynistic towards it's or towards myself. It's but I definitely I feel like in the last, especially like 10 years, I definitely have worked on it. I feel like, because especially with like the fact that like with my disordered eating and like the body image stuff, I definitely have worked heavily on this. I feel like it's getting a lot better. It's getting a lot easier. Um, I feel like it's been a growth period since at least 2016, in that I don't allow myself to get into relationships where I allow men in relationships to treat me poorly. I feel
Yeah.
like that's something that is part of like my internalized misogyny, is that I would get into relationships with people who would abuse me emotionally. And that was part of my internalized misogyny as well.
Yeah, like that's an interesting point that you just made. Like I feel like, so like one question that we have, and I want to touch on this, and then we can finish on talking about how we continue to work toward overcoming internalized misogyny. But the question of, does internalized misogyny have large scale repercussions beyond social interactions, like in politics and economics? I would say yes, right? Which is where like all the systematic aspects of it come from, right?
And we kind of touched on this throughout the episode, is
We
like
did.
we had in the 2016 election, we had 53% of white women voting for Trump in the 2016 election, despite the fact that Trump, had done things like, it came out that he had grabbed women by the pussy, and that it was that he was doing things, he was sexually assaulting women, and that it was a big controversy that he had done that to women, and women were okay with that, and they kind of victim blamed the woman that he did, that she was asking for it, or that they were okay, that he was charming and that he was handsome, and that they wanted him to grab them by the pussy, so that they voted for him, because he was a good guy. So they voted
Right.
for him, and voted him into office, and then tried to basically, they wanted to keep him in office. And I feel like that was internalized misogyny, and that everything that they've been doing since then has been internalized misogyny. Brett Kavanaugh is part of that extension of Trump, that internalized misogyny. Abolition of abortion rights is internalized misogyny. It's all going
Well,
back to the campaign.
and internalized misogyny has also cropped up in conversations about like uh sports and trans students being in sports, right? Like was
Mhm.
it Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, like they were having like this huge debate about like women in sports, and like trans people being in sports, like and they
Allowing
were
trans women to play sports.
exactly
It's saying that she's not a real woman, so she can't play sport.
right.
It's internalized misogyny. It's saying that
Well, and yeah, and
because
well,
she. Oh, sorry.
no, you go ahead.
No, you first.
Well, I was gonna say that it's like she would say like, well, women are less than and they shouldn't be in these sports anyway. Like that's one of the things that she would say, which is obviously very much internalized misogyny. Anyway, what were
Mhm.
you going to say? Sorry.
Transphobia. It's transphobia is a type of misogyny in itself. And like it's just a type of misogyny in and of itself, because it's saying that transphobia is saying that they couldn't possibly be women ever, and that they will always be men, and that they will, it's saying some really horrible things about them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but is like it just says it just says really gross stuff about, yeah. Transphobia is an interesting type of internalized misogyny, in that it invalidates them two separate ways. It says that they're not good enough to be women, but they're not strong enough to be men.
Exactly. 100%. So like it's very clear that like a lot of these like horrible conditionings, like they often, convalesce with one, like they like cross boundaries, like they bleed into one another often, unfortunately. But again, it all stems from like white supremacist patriarchy
Right.
at the end of the day, you know. So I guess like our final question that we should probably explore, and we've touched on it a little bit, is what can we do to overcome internalized misogyny?
So one thing that we can do to overcome internalized misogyny is, one, discussions that we're having definitely help. We've definitely glazed over a lot of topics. It's a huge discussion. So definitely like continuing to have these discussions, and
Mm-hmm.
continuing to go more in depth about these topics, and continuing to like go more in depth about um, analyzing your own internalized misogyny, and like looking more at the lens of your own history, with internalized misogyny, because everybody, it's like racism. Everybody has their own internalized misogyny, because we are part of this patriarchal white supremacist system. Everybody has some hint of it in their history. It's
Yeah.
unavoidable. It's one of those things that is just part of our system. Um,
I think like that's an excellent point. I think another thing that is really beneficial is being a more active advocate when you see um misogyny taking place. Like, because I often see a lot of people being bystanders and just like allowing it to take place and not really doing anything about it. I feel like much like bullying in general and racism, like if people would confront misogyny as, like, of course safety permitting, as they would see it, and try to turn those moments into points of accountability or educational moments, like that would definitely work toward preventing more of it from happening. Because the truth is, a lot of misogyny happens simply because it's so conditioned that for some people it's like breathing. Like that
mhm.
is literally how normal and commonplace it feels. It feels like it's breathing for some, and that's kind of terrifying when you think about it. But
Right.
until people start realizing that um it's present, they're not going to know what to do. Like I know, like for me, like when I like was in college, like, and I first came out, like I was very misogynistic. Like I was always like making comments about women, making very lewd jokes. And
I remember these lewd jokes.
yes, like you
And like
definitely.
I used to think they were really funny because I had my own internalized misogyny.
Oh yeah,
And so I would laugh at them, and I would think that they were hilarious. And
right.
I didn't have the critical thinking skills that back then, that I would go, hey, wait a minute, like, you know, this is this is
Mm.
bad. Like, this is toxic. Like, maybe I
Mhm.
shouldn't be laughing at this, or
Like,
like maybe I should have some more self-respect.
well, every like we would. I remember we would like look through our old videos sometimes and be like, did we just talk to each other that way? Like, did we
Yeah, like
just say that?
like we would be really toxic towards each other, and like I feel like we really healed ourselves and we really healed our
Oh
relationship with
yeah.
each other. And we talk to each other in a different way.
With greater
That was
respect.
just more respectful. It just in a more adult way, honestly.
Well, like, and mind you, like, and I know people are gonna say, well, like, a joke is a joke. Like, I get that jokes are a thing, but there's also a line where you can tell when something goes beyond just being a joke. You definitely can
It's
tell.
but it's like we used to bully each other. We used to name call each other. We used to say we used to say really mean things to each other,
Yeah.
and they came from a place of internalized misogyny and sexism.
Hmm.
And I think that they just came from a place that was not healthy, I think.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, combined with like our own internalized misogyny, like, I think that we were also surrounded by other people that we would see it often. So like it was also deemed socially acceptable. We thought that it was socially acceptable, right?
Because we were surrounded by people who had a lot of toxic issues.
Right. Yes. So like it was a growing experience. And mind you, like I didn't start discovering my internalized misogyny until a very dear friend like pointed it out to me and was like Donny, like that's not a cool thing to say. Like Donny, that's not acceptable, right? And of course, like I was very uncomfortable in that learning process, and like it didn't make me feel good. But when you're unlearning a systematic conditioning, it's not going to feel good. It's
I don't
like,
think I had like a come to Jesus moment with that necessarily. It was just like I slowly came to like a realization over time about like who I was and who I wanted to be.
yeah,
And I think that it wasn't necessarily like somebody came to me and said, hey, this isn't cool. It was more like I came to myself and said, what type of person do I want to be?
right,
And
yeah,
I think it was when I was in the desert. It's like that's the type of person I realized like who I wanted to be, and
yeah,
like that's kind of like when I came to myself and like I realized where I wanted to be.
yeah. I had a similar experience like toward the end of college and then graduating, like, and then like seeing like other gay men in my life, especially like being able to kind of like see that misogyny firsthand was like very much like a mirror. And I was just like, it's not cool, that's not acceptable, you know.
Right.
So I guess the moral of the story, moral of the episode is, um grant yourself the grace to allow yourself to experience learning moments like this, and to know that like we are influenced and a part of these conditioned systems, right? And we all have to do our part to unlearn them,
And just
whether it feels good. Yeah, be kind.
be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and like just it takes time. It's going to take a whole lifetime sometimes to figure this out, and that it's not going to take it's not overnight, and it's not something that's easily undone.
Right. Yep, I completely agree. So, well, my friends, this is a good conversation. Glad we were able to get it out. Glad we
Like a big fart, we just let that juicy thing ride.
oh. Ooh, that made me warm.
Like a big fart.
like, like big. Anyway, we love you all. We hope you have a good night, and we will see you next week for this season's finale episode. Okay, have a good night, everyone. We love you. Bye.